In Borderlands, there are give or take 12 manufacturers: Hyperion, Dial, Torg, Jacobs, Vladov, TDO, Penguin, Anshin, Malawan, Iridian, and Atlas. All of these manufacturers have their own unique gimmicks, from accuracy to fire rate to elemental effects. But if you were paying attention, there's one more manufacturer I'm not including. And that is because this manufacturer goes by a different name and brand in every single game. What's going on? I'm Cashew, and this is the Borderlands manufacturer that changes in every game. The manufacturer we're talking about today has the gimmick of high mag size, and the downsides vary from each iteration. Borderlands 1 introduces us to the true king of mag size, SNS Munitions. According to the official Borderlands lore guide, SNS was founded by two brothers who wanted to set out to change the weapons industry forever with the highest capacity guns on the market. SNS guns are known for their yellow design, being one of the more easily identifiable manufacturers in the game, as well as their high mag size and damage, but that's compensated by having really long reload speeds. They're actually one of the best manufacturers in Borderlands 1, especially with their legendaries, as really none of them miss. The Thanatos and Crux are classics, and the Draco and Orion are among some of the most beloved guns in the franchise. The only one that you could argue isn't good is the Gemini, and, well, yeah, that one sucks, but the overwhelming majority of SNS items are super useful. Even the non-uniques are great. I'm especially a fan of the SNS shotguns, since their high damage, mag, and fire rate just make it so easy to spam. Not to mention that for shotguns, they're really accurate too. And all of this isn't even mentioning the Serpens, one of the most fun pearls in the game with the most fun pearls. But despite being one of the most fun and sought after manufacturers in Borderlands 1, it would not return for the sequel. Lore-wise, it said that SNS couldn't keep up with competitors as Bandits started to make their own high-capacity weapons, but the real reason is that Gearbox thought Bandits making their own weapons was cooler, so they replaced them just cause. This leads us to Borderlands 2 with the manufacturer known as Bandit. Since these guns were made by bandits and not a unified corporation, all of the names of the guns are misspelled, along with having a lot of mismatched parts and generally really rough textures. Through the sound design and general look of the gun, it makes the player feel like the gun they're holding could fall apart any moment, which really makes it feel like it was just put together with scavenged parts. A big difference made right off the bat with Bandit is that though they keep the high mag and low reload speeds, the bonus damage is replaced by Bandit weapons' defining characteristic: incredibly low accuracy. Because of this, Bandit guns are very hit or miss, with the majority of them being a miss. Most non-uniques are kind of fine early game, but they're less usable the further you go into the campaign. The uniques are more of the same. They're all really just higher stat versions of non-uniques, with none of them really being that worth scaling up with UVHM. The Dog and the Rock Salt are very similar, the Tinderbox is lackluster, the Bone Shredder is basic but surprisingly good, and the Teeth of Terror, oh my god, it's straight garbage, it's so bad. The legendaries speak for bandit weapons a lot, since they show the good and the bad. You first got Sledge's Shotgun, a returnee from BO1 with its high damage and knockback speed removed, which were its defining characteristics in BO1, so this gun turns out to be aggressively mid. The Madhouse, it's a bandit assault rifle that has low fire rate, damage, reload speed, and bullet speed, but hey, at least the bullets bounce when they hit the ground. We then have the Slagger, which is actually incredibly good. It's an SMG with a very high bullet spread and fire rate, along with it always dropping with the slag element and having the highest slag chance of any gun in the game. This makes it an amazing gun late game because of how much of a buff slag gets in UVHM. You then have the Gub, which has a high mag and is always corrosive, but that's all it really does. I mean, its corrosive chance and fire rate aren't really that high, and it doesn't scale well to the late game. Like the Madhouse, even in early game, this gun will struggle, so it's not really worth getting one in my eyes. But saving the best for last, the Butter Boom. Now, I've talked about how the other gun types made by Bandit are pretty bad, but I've yet to tell you what Bandit does best: launchers. Bandit launchers have high mags and shoot multiple rockets for the price of one, and no launcher does that better than the Butter Boom. It shoots out 6 rockets at once, and they all have incredibly high damage. You cannot go wrong with picking one up. It's also used for rocket jumping, an exploit where players shoot the ground with a Bandit launcher while wearing an absorb shield, usually the Sham, to get massive height and move really fast. In Borderlands 2's DLC, there were quite a few Bandit guns that all suffer from similar problems, but some are a lot more unique at least. Mainly the Chopper, which is another returnee from BO1 that would shoot a massive mag incredibly fast, where you are unable to reload it, doing great damage but draining your ammo. The BL2 version has so much mag size that you can fit the full AR ammo supply in and still have more room in it. Sadly though, it suffers from damage, as to use it, you'll most likely have to use like half of your ammo supply just on one enemy. The only pearl made by Bandit in Borderlands 2 is the Sawbar, an always fire assault rifle that is surprisingly really good for what it is. Despite being a Bandit assault rifle, it can still put up a decent fight in UVHM and the OP levels. The Bandit isn't just guns like SNS was. They're also manufacturers of both grenades and shields. I'll start with grenades as they're the most simple. Basically, they are worse Torg grenades that can instead spawn with any element. There is a catch to this though, as Bandit grenades can't spawn with 0 fuse time, making them pretty trash. Onto shields now though, and they really put Bandit on the map. Bandit makes Roid shields, shields that give you bonus melee damage upon losing all your capacity. These are must-have shields for any melee build. The unique Roid shields are also really good, with the Love Thumper and Hide of Terramorphous really come into play as some of the best shields in the game. Overall, Bandit is pretty bad, with a few really good highlights, but the next game was going to change everything, including the name. And yeah, so for Borderlands the pre-sequel, Bandit was replaced by Scav. Scav is a copy and paste of Bandit from Borderlands 2, just with a lot of the guns' names changed. This is how we got the Donk, so that's a thing. But you may be wondering, if it's just the same thing, why change the name? Well, it changed because bandits aren't called bandits on the moon, they're scavengers, or scavs. Yeah, that's it. There is nothing unique to scav weapons that Bandit doesn't already do besides the new logo. Like a lot of things with pre-sequels, similar guns will stay the same, just with a different name. So for the legendaries, the Butterboom returns, and there are no problems there. It's got a cool new skin, I love it. We then have the Zim, which is a gob, but now it's always cryo instead of corrosive. Sledge's Shoddy, which, get this, it's a copy and paste of Sledge's shotgun from Borderlands 2. And finally, a brand new gun exclusive to the pre-sequel, the Thingy. It's an always corrosive launcher that, in despite of Scav Launcher's incredible reputation, manages to be in contention to be the worst legendary in the game. It uses 3 ammo per shot and has pretty low base damage for a launcher. This is because when landing a shot with the Thingy, 3 homing grenades will spawn and seek out the nearest enemy, with these grenades doing 10% more than the advertised damage on the card. Even with all this, it still barely hurts most enemies, especially in UVHM. And speaking of grenades, they're more of the same from BL2, and there are no unique Scav grenades at all. In the way of shields though, there are 2 new legendary Roid shields, being the Shooting Star, a Roid shield that spawns an explosive projectile above the enemy they're hitting, and the Big Thumper, which is more of a traditional Roid shield. Sadly though, both of these shields are outmatched by the Maliwan Roid shield, the Avalanche, which is a Roid shield, a Spike shield, and a Nova shield all in one. So it really was never going to be beaten. That is a shame for Scav, as most characters in the pre-sequel do have some sort of melee build they can use. Moving into the DLC though, 1 more Scav legendary would be added, and despite it being a brand new TPS exclusive, it sucks. I'm of course talking about the Fusilier. It's a pretty generic assault rifle that has nothing going for it. No gimmicks, no buffs. It's just a regular Scav AR that has a cool skin, I guess. Easily the worst of the DLC legendaries, which makes Scav pretty easily the worst manufacturer in Borderlands the pre-sequel, especially since other manufacturers that are known for being bad, like Dahl and Tediore, are some of the best in this game. It was always clear to us that Scav wasn't going to return for the next game, as it was really just Bandit with a different name, but would Bandit itself make a return for Borderlands 3? Yeah, well, no. Well, kinda. Mostly no. Borderlands 3 replaces Bandit and Scav with COV, the Children of the Vault, the main antagonist of the game. Still standing by the Bandit ways of having the guns feel like scavenged parts thrown together, but this time with the added gimmick of having infinite ammo and an overheating system. Basically, every COV weapon has a bottomless mag size, but because of the shoddy craftsmanship, the guns can either break or overheat if you're shooting them for too long. Repairing your gun or cooling it down is your stand-in for reloading. It's honestly a pretty fun and unique change, and makes COV guns actually worth using. Launcher's got a major overhaul though. They work the same as the others, but are now elemental flamethrowers that consume a lot of ammo but deal massive damage. There are of course other variants like Swordblade Launcher and more traditional ones that shoot large arced shots, but the flamethrowers are by far the best and the coolest. Now I'm not going to go over every COV legendary like I did for the others, because there's 19, holy shit. So I'm just going to be talking about a few standouts, like the Lenoge, nah, I'm just kidding. Like the Embrace the Pain. It's a pretty powerful COV assault rifle that never breaks. Once you go above its breaking threshold, it instead lights on fire, which damages the player. It creates a fun risk-reward, but is really not that good at endgame. Next I want to talk about the Pestilence. It's very unique, as it has a massive radiation explosion upon breaking. This can be very easily abused by cancelling the fix animation over and over to loop the explosion. I don't really recommend doing it though, as it's a victim of the Borderlands 3 effect, which is what I call any build that may be really good, but to use it, you need to put up with incredible amounts of visual pollution. The last one I wanted to touch on was the Tizzy. This arms race weapon is one of the most broken in the game. When it starts to overheat, the Tizzy gains increased fire rate and mag size, meaning it'll take more shots to break. Every 6th bullet the Tizzy fires will ricochet and flies into the air, going back to hit any target, and every 12th bullet fired has a 70% amp damage boost. It's a really good gun. Ideal for raid bossing, but it eats up a lot of ammo. What's kind of disappointing about COV though is that they no longer make shields, with the Roid shields being handed off to Penguin, usually known for their high capacity. Same goes for grenades too. COV only makes guns in Borderlands 3, and that's kind of lackluster. But that's not where this story ends. it goes full circle back to SNS. With so much time passing from the first game and SNS being taken out in a very lackluster way, fans were getting curious to what actually happened to them lore-wise. And Borderlands 3 has an answer. In a very easy to miss Easter egg, you can hear a new ad for SNS in one of the Crimson radio towers. Like most Easter eggs in Borderlands 3, it's so hard to find. But if you're insane enough to sit at every Crimson radio tower in hopes of hearing this ad, you'll find out that SNS is no longer a guns company. It's an accessories company. That's right, they're now branded as SNS Accessories, where they make, and I swear I'm not making this up, the colored beams that come out of guns when you throw them on the ground. Which raises so many questions, like, those are canon, and why would any manufacturer ever put a white beam on a gun? And now that I think about it, who was making these quote-unquote accessories back in Borderlands 1? Because it couldn't have been SNS, they were too busy being peak during that time. But that is the complete story of the manufacturer that changes in every Borderlands game. Will Borderlands 4 have another new manufacturer in its spot? Almost definitely, with COV being defeated and abolished by the end of Borderlands 3. But the real question is, what will take its place? I think the most likely returnee would be Bandit, as it can very easily continue what COV was doing or go down a completely different road. To be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing another brand new one, but wouldn't it be so sick if SNS munitions returned along with the iconic guns like the Orion Crux and Thanatos? But truly, thank you if you watched this far into the video. Tell us what you want to see for the mag-size manufacturer in the future and what your current favorite is. But thank you so much for watching. Now let's do the channel member shoutouts. My channel members are JBH, whose best friend is a gigantic mutated platypus named Giuseppe. He's actually like super cool once you get to know him. Wesker520, who can do the can, but just because they can, asks you if you can do the can, which you most likely cannot. Angel B, who forgot the lines to the song they were singing, but saved it by pulling out a saxophone and doing a solo that no one was really ready for, but it was so fire no one really cared. Chibi Scrimpy, who can hibernate like a bear, but when it's over, they have so much power they can lift cars and shit, but the effects wear off pretty fast, so it's not really worth it to them. And Jaden, or Jadine H, who was falling from a cliff, but then they woke up and that was all a dream. When they woke up, they were falling out of a plane until they woke up in their bed thinking that was pretty crazy. They then stepped out of bed, then immediately stepped on a Lego, which then caused them to wake up in their bed again. Upon realizing what was going on, they went back into work and told off their boss and started burning everything. But that was all real. They woke up for real that time. And last minute inclusion Noah Roland, who goes, every time they take a sip of water, just because they're built different. Thank you guys for showing me the extra support. I really appreciate you guys. If you also want to become a channel member and get a compliment at the end of every video, the join button is right below the video there. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.